What's up, guys? We just got a bunch of information regarding Marvel Rivals, the second half of Season 1 and Season 2 launch, regarding a lot of the character nerfs and balances coming that they want to kind of implement into the game. And there is a long list of changes, and we'll kind of be going over them and kind of explaining a little bit of that information. Guys, if you enjoy my Marvel Rivals content and you enjoy Marvel Rivals gameplay, or you enjoy me in general, be sure to click a like on this video, and a sub to the channel would be spectacular. Guys, if you guys have any questions, comments, or anything, let me know down below. I'll do my best to answer them regarding Marvel Rivals or any of the games I've played. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some of these patch notes that are coming out as far as some of the leaks that have been leaked on Twitter, and they're definitely going to get into it, and I think some of these are really interesting. We're going to go ahead and start with the first set of characters, which are the tanks. So most of the tanks here got kind of changes, buffs, and nerfs to them. The first one we're going to dive into is Venom. Venom has an increased battlefield threat upon entry, reduced his energy cost for his ultimate. So his ultimate in general has been reduced. It's easier to now access his ultimate and achieve it. Frenzied Arrival now knocks enemies inward instead of vertically with a 75-degree inward knockback angle. So I guess it kind of pulls them towards you to be able to do more damage, which is one of the biggest things as a tank. If you've ever played tank, you'll know you're slow, you're bulky. So having enemies kind of come closer to you is going to be a nice benefit to be able to damage them and kill them. Devouring Feast's ultimate is now a cost reduced from 2,800 ultimate points to 2,500. So once I said earlier, it's going to be easier to achieve his ultimate. So kind of making Venom a little bit easier to play in terms of being able to use his ultimate and maybe his damage abilities. Captain America got a bunch of changes here. His increased survivability during prolonged battles, improved usability of Vibranium Energy Shield, and reduced ultimate energy cost. Now able to use Absolute Will for defense while jumping as well. So he's able to use a shield as well while he's jumping. Vibranium Energy Shield projectile speed increased from 60 meters a second to 80 meters a second. Bounce speed increased from 100 meters a second to 150 meters a second. So his shield now travels faster and does more damage as well. So that's going to be nice to see. Call of Freedom is ultimate. Energy cost reduced from 3,100 to 2,800, so it's going to be easier again to get the Captain America ultimate. Light, shield, strike, and melee attacks are now separate. Melee attacks in shield, flight, or combo mode will activate the first two strikes of light, shield, strike. Divine Descent will no longer trigger when performing melee attacks while airborne, which is solid. Really, really good changes there. For Captain America, I definitely think that he needed some buffs. I don't see being played too much because obviously he's more of a dive tank, but his ability now to get his abilities and ultimate a little bit quicker is going to be interesting to see him maybe selected a little bit more among players. Thor got some, and I'm a big Thor guy, so these are big for me. Thor got his improved usability of Rune Awakening, which is when he enters to that state where he can fling lightning around, not just his hammer. Remove the global cooldown after Rune Awakening ends. Big as well. So if you ever played Groot, you would press E on your keyboard, you would go into that Rune Awakening state, and then you would press the F to bring down the lightning bubble all around you, or however you have keybinds, excuse me. But now after you exit the Rune Awakening state, you can pop that bubble, get your Rune Awakening back, and go at it again, which makes him a lot stronger. I definitely think this is going to make Thor a lot more usable and a lot stronger to be able to play with him. I definitely think he's one of the better tanks already when you pair him up with a really good shield tank, but now this is going to add into his ability to damage characters. Groot got an increased combat range threat. His Thorn Wall maximum placement distance increased from 15 meters to 18 meters, so now you can put his wall out a little bit further. Just obviously the wall does damage characters and also benefits you as well with shield. So having that ability to make him a little bit more lethal in range is going to be interesting to see how it plays. Magneto got a change, slightly reduced his survivability, slightly increased offensive capability, which means he was really strong and really hard to kill, but he didn't really do that much damage output. Magnetic orb damage increased from 35 to 40. Electromagnetic curtain now consumes 65 energy per second, up from 50, and max duration reduced from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds. So all of his abilities really kind of got buffed and did time reductions to all of his abilities. So nice to see that Magneto is going to be a little bit more useful and more powerful in terms of his damage output. Doctor Strange, 2 changes here. Slightly reducing his survivability by reducing his base health from 650 to 600. So Strange, all in all, is a really solid tank. Probably definitely one of the better tanks to use in terms of his shield, his ability to fly, his ultimate, his teleportability. So they felt like he was a little bit too tanky, and they just went ahead and reduce his health, which I'm okay with. I do think he was really, really strong, but I also think that he's one of the best tanks out there. So that is the changes to tanks. Let me know down below if you play tank and what your thoughts on these changes are. We're going to go ahead and swing it over to duelists here, and we're going to go into each one of these. First up is Iron Fist. So Iron Fist got a bunch of changes here. We'll kind of try and talk about them. I don't really play Iron Fist much, so maybe some Iron Fist players down below can let me know how this is going to affect his playability. Improved sustained combat capability, added new functionality, Zigzag Punch, and it provided more battlefield choices. Jeet Kune Do attack damage adjusted, hits 1, 2, and 5 reduced from 32 damage to 30. Hits 3 and 4 reduced from 16 to 15. Hits 6 reduced from 55 to 50. So it looks like his damage overall has been reduced from what I understand. Zigzag Punch damage is reduced from 90 to 10 per hit, but now deals 1.7% of the enemy's max HP as damage per hit. Heart Meditation bonus HP increased from 50 to 150, but now decays at 25 HP per second after 1 second. Block and counter max converted HP increased from 150 to 200. Base health increased from 250 to 300. So they went ahead and changed up his base health and have added some additional counteracts to how much damage he's doing and kind of nerf some of his damage output, but raised how much health he has. Maybe try and balance him out a little bit better, because we know Iron Fist is one of the most annoying characters in a good player's hands. Mr. Fantastic, personally, my least favorite DPS out there. I know he's kind of a pseudo tank, but realistically, this dude just doesn't do enough damage in my opinion, or maybe I've only ever played with really bad Mr. Fantastics. He's improved his harassment potential and increased ultimate skill threat. Stretch and slam ground effect radius increased from 2.5 meters to 5 meters, now also knocks enemies outward. Stretch and slam cooldown increased from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. Mind Crush ultimate base damage increased from 50 to 70. Mind Crush energy cost increased from 2,800 to 3,400. Mind Crush now has damage fall off, reducing damage from 3 meters outward with max reduction to 10 meters. Iron Man now has increased damage output of Beam Ray in both normal and overdrive states. Beam Ray damage increased from 120 seconds to 140 seconds. Beam Ray armor overdrive damage increased from 180 seconds to 190 seconds. Hawkeye has increased survivability and close range threat, enhanced ultimate skill impact. Base health has now been increased from 250 to 275. Explosive arrow projectile damage reduced from 20 to 15, but its field damage increased from 25 to 32. Crescent Slash cooldown reduced from 15 seconds to 12 seconds. Falcon Vision, his ultimate, has now charged his bow faster with charge speed multiplier increased from 1.2 to about 1.35 seconds. So Hawkeye got some nice changes there, as well as Iron Man along those changes. Iron Man, as we know, without the Gamma Overdrive was kind of weak and really never a solid DPS pick as far as when you have somebody like Storm out there, which is why Iron Man never got picked and Hulk was always banned in those higher elo lobbies. Hawkeye as well kind of had some nice added changes to his base health and obviously his damage, his ultimate, which I do think are really important because Hawkeye could be a really good character, but also does seem to be really weak at times. Storm has reduced long range threat, decreased self buff, while Aura from increasing team buff. Windblade damage fall off at 30 meters, improved from 70% to 60%. Thunderstorm self-damage buff reduced from 16% to 12%. Ally buff increased from 8% to 10%. Enhanced Thunderstorm self-damage buff reduced from 30 to 25%. Kind of some changes trying to nerf Storm, but the biggest thing I think with Storm right now is kind of her ultimate ability that is really, really strong. Star-Lord has increased max movement distance from Rocket Boost, enhancing mobility. Rocket Boost max energy increased from 1,200 to 1,800. So now it can fly and be in the air longer, which I think is a really good change and makes Star-Lord a little more viable in terms of making him a flyer. Scarlet Witch increased survivability when using ultimate. As we know, her ultimate is one of the easiest to counter in the game unless you have a Magneto bubble around it. With that comes, obviously, you can just really shoot her out of the sky and she's kind of completely nerfed. But Reality Erasure ultimate, her grants about 100 bonus HP now when she's activated. So instead of 250 HP, she goes up to 350 HP. Now it decays at 50 seconds after the ultimate ends. So it's really just a health buff to be able to get off that ultimate, which I think is going to be really impactful to see how she's now played out a little bit more interestingly, using her ultimate in specific situations where there's a huge team around and she could honestly wipe off an entire point. Spider-Man slightly reduces cooldown for web shot, decreasing attack downtime, so he can now attack a little bit quicker with his web shots. Web shot charge time reduced from 3 seconds to 2.5 seconds. So Iron Man now can shoot his webs a little bit quicker and a little bit more efficiently, which already is annoying enough. Moon Knight, increased enemy reaction to Khonshu's Fist, optimize its damage logic. Khonshu's Fist is sense speed reduced. Adjust Khonshu's Fist damage. Each hit now deals 150 instead of 75, while removing the previous central area effect. Black Widow now has improved combat potential and post-ultimate threat. As we know, Black Widow is probably one of the worst DPS players, in my opinion. She needs a lot of pair-up, a lot of team-ups to make her really viable, but improved her combat potential with the Red Room rifle magazine size now increased from 8 to 15. Enemy Vortex, her ult, now slow effect reduced from 80 to 55%, so they're only slowed to 55% instead of that 80%, but it also inflicts a debuff for 4 seconds, causing a 15% damage increase taken. So if you hit that ultimate in the area in the vicinity, in the AoE, they'll now be able to take more damage from your friendly tanks or other DPSs as well. Hela now has improved suppression capability against mid to long range enemies. Soul Piercer damage fall off at 30 meters increased from 70% to 80%. So now she has a bit of a damage fall off regarding her Soul Piercer ability. So that's all the Duelists. The biggest one I think here are going to be the changes to Iron Fist and the changes to Iron Man, making it a little bit stronger. Star-Lord as well, some really good changes. Let me know if your Duelist was named in one of these changes down below and what your thoughts on them are going to be. Now we go to the last characters here are going to be the Strategist. Adam Warlock has an increased damage and slight healing buff during Soul Synergy. Quantum magic damage increased from 55 to 60. Damage fall off at 40 meters improved from 50 to 60%. Soul Synergy healing increased from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. So some nice Adam Warlock changes and buffs in my opinion. So now we have some Cloak and Dagger changes as well. As we know, Cloak and Dagger is one of the most annoying, if not the most annoying strategists in terms of her ult. And obviously because of that, she's ultimately banned a lot of these times in these higher elo lobbies. Honestly, the Cloak and Dagger changes here, in my opinion, are probably the biggest that affect any character here. So we'll dive into it. Increased survival during ultimate, reduced ultimate frequency and duration. What that means, obviously, we'll get into the numbers here, is now she can survive her ultimate from getting Magneto orbed, or when people kind of focus her, she can survive a little bit better, but her ultimate frequency, how quick she gets it, excuse me, has now been nerfed. Light and Shadow, her ultimate energy cost increased from 3,400 now to 4,000. That's a pretty significant jump in terms of how much it takes to get her ultimate. We'll have to wait and see if she's still useful with that ultimate, or if she's kind of been nerfed to the ground and kind of obviously presents the door to open other characters. Light and Shadow duration reduced from now 10 seconds to 8 seconds, so her ultimate only lasts 8 seconds now with shorter pause times between phases. Not only applies one healing instance per phase instead of stacking. Camera control unlocked during Light and Shadow, so you can look around when you're in her ultimate instead of kind of being locked to one direction. Cloak of Fear vulnerability effect increased from 20% to 28%. So like I said, a lot of changes to her ultimate, kind of nerfing her ultimate, which we know was one of the most broken abilities that she had. Invisible Woman got some nerfs to her ultimate as well, which her Phantom Presence ultimate, that big circle that goes around a point or an AoE, her energy cost for it has increased from 4,000 to 4,300. So now it takes a little bit longer to earn up that ultimate. And it's obviously going to be impacting the way she plays because, as we know, she is one of the main healers, especially with her ultimate being really, really strong. There's also been some team-up ability changes that have happened here, and some of those, obviously, which I mentioned before, was the Gamma Charge, reducing Hulk synergy and benefit from beam rate damage for Iron Man. So he's now been nerfed. He's not really getting that much of a benefit from utilizing his Iron Man team-up with Hulk, which I think is a really big change. Obviously, Hulk being one of the main ones that are always banned in higher ranked lobbies. Dimensional Teleport improved Blank Panther and Psylocke's combat endurance. Light Force now grants a Moon Knight healing over time after skill activation. That's his team up with Cloak and Dagger, which I think is really, really cool. Symbiote Bond reworked defensive mechanics for Spider-Man, and Penny Parker now granting temporarily invisibility instead of damage reduction. So before, whenever she had a team up regarding Spider-Man, Venom, and Penny Parker, before if they had that team up, they would take less damage. Obviously, they have a damage reduction because of that team up, but now what they do is try and balance that, which I think is a really good change and smart here, is the fact that they are going to be going to a temporary invisible state where they can actually get out of an area or disengage. So instead of making a Mora 9, they can kind of just disappear and disengage without having to obviously be impossible to kill. So that was a lot of changes, a lot of big things coming with season 1, second half, or season 2 here with that launch as well. And I'm definitely excited to see a lot of these. I do think some of these are really, really good changes, and some of them are kind of questionable. So we'll have to see how they play out. But let me know down below again, guys, in the comments, what's your guys' thoughts? What's your guys' thoughts on the biggest change? What's your biggest W changes? What's your biggest L changes? And if you guys enjoy my Marvel Rivals content, make sure you guys drop a like on this video and a sub to the channel. It would be spectacular, guys. I appreciate you guys for watching, taking time out every day to spend it with me. I'll catch you guys later. Peace and love.